Continuing where I left off, chapter 30 on parole. I was awakened, indeed. We were all awakened, for I could see even the sentinel shake himself together from where he had fallen against the doorpost, by a clear, hearty voice hailing us from the margin of the wood. "Blockhouse ahoy!" he cried. "Here's the doctor!" And the doctor it was. Although I was glad to hear the sound, yet my gladness was not without admixture. I remembered with confusion my insubordinate and stealthy conduct, and when I saw where it had brought me, among what companions, and surrounded by what dangers, I felt ashamed to look him in the face. He must have risen in the dark, for the day had hardly come, and when I ran to a loophole and looked out, I saw him standing, like silver once before, up to the mid-leg in creeping vapor. "You, doctor, top o' the morning to you, sir," cried Silver, broad awake and beaming with good nature in a moment. "Bright and early, to be sure, and it's the early bird, as the saying goes, that gets the rations. George, shake up your timbers, son, and help Dr. Livesey over the ship's side. All a doing well, your patient was, all well and merry." So he pattered on, standing on the hilltop, with his crutch under his elbow, and one hand upon the side of the log house, quite the old John in voice, manner, and expression. "We've quite a surprise for you, too, sir," he continued. "We've a little stranger here, heh, a no-boarder and a lodger, sir, and looking fit and taut as a fiddle. Slept like a supercargo, he did, right alongside of John, stem to stem we was all night." Dr. Livesey was by this time across the stockade and pretty near the cook, and I could hear the alteration in his voice as he said, "Not Jim, the very same Jim as ever was," says Silver. The doctor stopped outright, although he did not speak, and it was some seconds before he seemed able to move on. "Well, well," he said at last, "duty first and pleasure afterwards, as you might have said yourself, Silver. Let us overhaul these patients of yours." A moment afterwards he had entered the blockhouse, and, with one grim nod to me, proceeded with his work among the sick. He seemed under no apprehension, though he must have known that his life among these treacherous demons depended on a hair, and he rattled on to his patients as if he were paying an ordinary professional visit in a quiet English family. His manner, I suppose, reacted on the men, for they behaved to him as if nothing had occurred, as if he were still ship's doctor and they still faithful hands before the mast. "You're doing well, my friend," he said to the fellow with the bandaged head, "and if ever any person had a close shave, it was you. Your head must be as hard as iron. Well, George, how goes it? You're a pretty color, certainly. Why, your liver, man, is upside down. Did you take that medicine?" "Did he take that medicine, Min?" Aye, sir, he took it, sure enough," returned Morgan. "Because, you see, since I'm a mutineer's doctor, or prison doctor, as I prefer to call it," says Dr. Livesey in his pleasant way, "I make it a point of honor not to lose a man for King George, God bless him, and the gallows." The rogues looked at each other, but swallowed the home thrust in silence. Dick don't feel well, sir, said one. Don't he? Replied the doctor. Well, step up here, Dick, and let me see your tongue. No, I should be surprised if he did. The man's tongue is fit to frighten the French. Another fever. Ah, there, said Morgan. That come of spilling Bibles. That comes, as you call it, of being an arrant asses, retorted the doctor, and not having sense enough to know honest air from poison, and the dry land from a vile pestiferous sloth. I think it most probable, though of course it's only an opinion, that you'll all have the deuce to pay before you get that malaria out of your systems. Camp in a bog, will you? Would you? Silver, I'm surprised at you. You're less of a fool than many, take you all round. But you don't appear to me to have the rudiments of a notion of the rules of health. Well, he added, after he had dozed them round and they had taken his prescriptions with really laughable humility, more like charity school children than bloody guilty mutineers and pirates, well, that's done for today, and now I should wish to have a talk with that boy, please. And he nodded his head in my direction carelessly. George Merry was at the door, spitting and spluttering over some bad-tasted medicine. But at the first word of the doctor's proposal, he swung round with a deep flush and cried, "No!" and swore. Silver struck the barrow with his open hand. "Silence!" he roared, and looked about him positively like a lion. "Doctor," he went on in his usual tones, "I was thinking of that, knowing as how you had a fancy for the boy. We're all humbly grateful for your kindness, and as you see, puts faith in you and takes the drugs down, like that much grog. And I take it I've found the way as suit all. Hawkins, will you give me your word of honor as a young gentleman? For a young gentleman you are, although poor born, your word of honor not to slip your cable?" I really gave the pledge required. "Then, doctor," said Silver, "you just step outside that stockade, and once you're there, I'll bring the boy down on the inside, and I reckon you can yarn through the spars. Good day to you, sir, and all our duties to the squire and Captain Smollett." The explosion of disapproval, which nothing but Silver's black looks had restrained it, broke out immediately the doctor had left the house. Silver was roundly accused of playing double, of trying to make a separate peace for himself, of sacrificing the interest of his accomplices and victims, and in one word, of the identical, exact thing that he was doing. It seemed to me so obvious, in this case, that I could not imagine how he was to turn their anger. But he was twice the man the rest were, and his last night's victory had given him a huge preponderance on their minds. He called them all the fools and dolts you could imagine, said it was necessary I should talk to the doctor, flooded the chart in their faces, asked them if they could afford to break the treaty the very day they were bound a treasure hunting. "No, by thunder!" he cried. "It is us must break the treaty when the time comes. Until then, I'll gammon that doctor if I have to ill his boots with brandy." And then he bade them get the fire lit, and stalked out upon his crutch, with his hand on my shoulder, leaving them in disarray, and silenced by his volubility rather than convinced it. "Slow, lad, slow," he said. "They might round upon us in a twinkle of an eye if we were seen to hurry." Very deliberately, then, did we advance across the sand to where the doctor awaited us on the other side of the stockade, and as soon as we were within easy speaking distance, Silver stopped. I'm going to leave it off there, and thank you for tuning in to this series. It's almost coming to the end, almost. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it, or a thumbs down. Comments below, or just view or subscribe if you like, and hope you're enjoying it. See you in the next episode. Bye.